Welcome to Talent Talks with Rekroot. On today's episode, we welcome Kelly Phillips. Kelly is a current P2P coach and has been a recruiter at Rekroot, and she's going to help us discuss referral culture and building your book of business. Thanks for coming on the show, Kelly.
Welcome to Talent Talks with Rekroot, where we discuss everything we can around recruiting and financial services industry. I'm Morgan, the co-founder of Rekroot, joined by Kim, the other co-founder, and our guest, Kelly Phillips. Our guest today is currently a coach at P2P, passionate in providing professional sales training in the financial services industry. She is also a former recruiter from Rekroot. Please welcome Kelly Phillips.
Hello.
Hey,
Hi.
Kelly.
Hi.
Well, thanks for coming on today. We're really excited to, really deep dive into building this book of referrals. And we know right now with P2P, do you just want to tell us a little bit about what P2P is and how you're really teaching that referrals, not necessarily what you're teaching about the referrals, but how do you kind of teach that to some of your clients? And then we can relate it a little bit to what we do too.
Yeah, sure. So P2P, just for those that have never heard of it, stands for, so it's literally P2P. So taking your potential and releasing it into performance, because everybody has potential, regardless of the career that they're in. All of us have so much untapped potential, and really getting out of our own way. We help reps, we help people in sales get out of their own way to really tap into all of their God-given skills. We specifically work in the financial services field. So I work with Jim Effner, the founder of the company, where he comes in. The majority of our programs and what we offer is he will teach systems in sales training. And then I work with any rep that's gone through our program on an individual coaching basis. So reinforcing, challenging, being an advocate. Sometimes it's just being a high five, because we've all been to programs where we hear amazing things and we're like, that was unbelievable. And then we go back to the office and we do nothing different. And we go back to our old ways because our muscle memory is the same. And so we really focus on kind of breaking that up, and me coming in and changing the way they think and being accountable and a partner so they're not alone. One of which then one of our systems that we teach is prospecting. So we are emerged in that world often.
Well, and as we all know, being part of Talent Talks here on our podcast, a lot of our themes are really having to do with anything recruiting, and ultimately recruiting in this business and in any type of recruiting, I would say, is like sales anyways, right? So it's such a relevant topic that we are really looking forward to digging into a little bit more. So what would you say if somebody is first starting off, whether it be in financial services and a recruiter in financial services, what do you think that they should do in order to start building a referral network, is what we would call it?
Yeah, I think before you can build a really successful referral network, you have to start working on a referral mindset, because you could be, we've seen this with reps, we've seen this with recruiters that are the most connected. They are surrounded by talent, they're surrounded by people with disposable incomes, and they never tap into it. And we've also seen people that have no natural market and are not surrounded by talent that do unbelievable things. And at the end of the day, that all has to do with their mindset. And so if I was a brand new recruiter, or if I was a brand new rep, I would really start to evaluate and look at my own mindset on what I believe. So if I'm a rep, the first thing I would start to get in tuned with and work with is that I'm in the most amazing career ever. And regardless of what work I do with a client, I'm going to leave them better than I found them. And that's amazing. And the only way I can help people is if I'm in front of people. And the only way to get in front of people is if I prospect. And the language behind it and the systems behind it can be taught. But if I get my mindset right day one, that's amazing. And same thing for a recruiter. Like, I'm about to introduce somebody into the best career ever, because financial reps leave clients, like I said, better than they found them. And I would make a strong argument, because we know not 100% of reps make it in this business. Not 100% of anybody makes it in any career. But I would argue that this career specifically, if you don't make it, you're far better off than where you were before you started this career. Same thing as a recruiter, because of the skills that it will teach you by being in the field that cannot be taught on a podcast, that can't be taught in a textbook, that can't be taught in a classroom. It's by being in the field. Those skills are like the best. So I think really, to answer your question, I would really start to gut check myself on my mindset, and I would get so fired up and excited for what was possible for me, because the most successful people, whether it's prospecting, whether it's sales, it's really just a transfer of enthusiasm. Like when you're around somebody that's excited about an opportunity, they're excited about a product, all of a sudden you're like, I want that product. I want to be in that career. And you're like, wait a minute. No, I didn't. But that energy is so contagious. And so just to start to get excited about the opportunity of prospecting will change the game, I think, for anybody.
So two things that you had mentioned, first of all, was mindset. And then the second being that this is the best career that you could ever get into. I want to dig into that in a second, but the mindset portion, how can you do like a gut check or really try to figure out if you have that referral mindset?
Yeah, well, I think you have to ask yourself, what are you thinking right before you prospect? Are you thinking like, I'm about to ask somebody for a favor. I hope I don't bother them. Do they like me? What if they say no? Or is your mindset like, I'm about to give this person a gift because they can introduce me to somebody and that could change everybody's life. And, they better take it serious because this is a big deal. And we've all been in those situations where you're so pumped up and you're so empowered that it just spews out of you. And we've all been in situations where we're feeling very insecure. And I think if a new rep or a new recruiter were to go right into where they prospected last and said, all right, what was my mindset going into them? And if it was like, I was pretty empowered, keep doing that, feed that. And if you're like, I had a scarcity mindset, then how do we change that? How do we work on that? Because it's not a switch. It's just an opportunity for growth.
Okay. I love that. It really is, it does always tie back to that mindset and experiences. Like, how have you been asked for referrals in the past? How have responses been for referrals? So all of that plays into how you're feeling about it. And, what if somebody has that negative mindset? What would you tell them to do? Kelly?
Well, I would first comment on, you just said the word responses, because reps and recruiters will do this. Like if I prospected with 100 people and 99 were so favorable and that one was terrible, now I'm operating off of that one. It's like, man, don't let that one sink your ship. Remember the 99 that you helped. And I always tell the reps that I work with, like, people's response is not your responsibility. Your response is your responsibility. And so I think, first of all, just to remind yourself, that can be in daily affirmations. I'm a big believer in saying out loud every morning and every night what I want, what I believe, or what I want to believe about myself, and I'm not there yet, is number one. I also think, in regards to changing your mindset, there's a positive one. If you have a scarcity mindset, a negative mindset, and you're like, I want to be a positive person, I want to be an abundant person. How do I do that though? A lot of the ways that we behave came from, like, when we were this tall, around our parents, our friends. They talk about your paradigm that came from your grandparents to your parents to you. And so how do you change your paradigm, which is just ideas that are repetitive habits. And so the very best book that I've ever read, I think I'm reading it now for the 13th time, is Change Your Paradigm, Change Your Life by Bob Proctor. It talks about how you change all of that. It's also on audio. So it's like the easiest to listen to. I think every single person that tunes into this podcast should listen to it. It's by far my favorite. But really, just to change it is, one, you have to be aware of it. And then two, you have to make a conscious effort. So I set a reminder on my phone every morning and every night to do my affirmations. And so I say whatever I want to believe 3 times out loud in the morning and 3 times at night, because our brain is a computer and we can rewire it. And it's amazing in like 18, 20 days how things that you didn't think before now become a part of who you are. I really, really, really believe in being a positive person. I think the world's got enough negativity that I'd like to be a light. And so I want to constantly change that in my brain. I also think people need to pay attention to who they're spending their time with. We become the company we keep, we become the books we read, and we become what we believe. And if all of a sudden you look around and you go, man, I love these people, but they're not very kind verbally, you know what? You're probably not going to be very kind verbally. So if you want to change your mindset and your belief, you have to start working on changing your paradigm, and you have to change your environment. And when you can become aware of those two and put like positive, high energy, bigger thinkers together, sky's the limit.
Kelly, so when we talk about COIs, how do you identify either individual or an organization, and if they can become a COI? When it relates to advisors, or it might relate to recruiting?
Yeah. I thought a lot about this because I knew we were going to be talking about prospecting, and COIs are really important, but they're not the main afloat device, if you will. They're like an ancillary necessary benefit. The best way to get referrals is by prospecting on a regular basis, but we also want to utilize COIs. I don't think a COI is successful unless the COI has seen your process, whether it's recruiting or it's financial services. So if it is a rep, you should not have a COI that is not your client. They cannot speak to you. They cannot speak about you because they haven't worked with you. And far too often reps are like, that person's connected, I'll make them COI. And they need to breathe and take a pause and make them go through their sales cycle. I want you to see the work that I do. I want you to understand how valuable I am. And then we can talk about introductions. For a recruiter, I would want them to sit into my interview process. I would want to carve out some time to really walk through how I interview, the gifts of this career. What do we do? How is it different? Not just like I'm recruiting for financial services. I need people that can do this, 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 and this on paper. That's just transactional. And I think great COIs are relational and they're super different. I think when it comes to a rep, it is typically also someone that's in sales because they get it. So you want to make somebody, this is my opinion, I've seen the best reps with the best COIs find somebody that's also in a sales department and is super well connected. And maybe it's somebody they interviewed that wasn't the right fit. Maybe it's a friend in a different network, can be amazing. I actually think for a recruiter, I tried so hard to have different COIs and I would get one here, one there. At the end of the day, my best like COIs were my reps that I already worked with. And it was reps that got the career, they got the value of our culture, they liked me, which takes a while when you come into recruiting. So if you're a brand new recruiter and you're in office and you're trying to build a referral culture, don't quit. Consistency is important with your like COIs, but also know that you don't have a relationship with them yet and they're about to open their book of business or their personal life, and it's going to take time and it's going to take trust. And so if you're frustrated, just give yourself some grace and keep going. It will happen. But reps are the best. Rep knows exactly who makes it in this business and who doesn't make it in this business. Not that you asked, but I would tell you what I found at the very end of my recruiting career that worked best is I would have my newer reps come into my office once a week and we'd go through their calendar and I would say, just tell me their name, their age, and what they do for a career, who you met with last week. And we'd start to go and they knew exactly what I was doing because they'd be like, oh, well, this person isn't good for like this career. And I'd be like, I don't want you to qualify them. I just want you to answer me. And because they wanted to keep them as a client, and I got that. And I didn't want
we're going to ruin.
Totally. Yeah. Yes. And so you have to like breathe a little bit and just tell me a little bit about them from a facts, not a feelings. Right. And more times than not, they would learn how they were self-defeated. They were having some self-defeated talk in their own minds. And then we also found some great candidates that came and joined the career. And so, but again, it was a system. It wasn't just like, hey, who do you know today? It was like, this is what we do on a repeat basis to like turn referrals. Some will, some won't. So what? But we got to kind of keep that activity going. That's where I found COIs to be the best in my experience.
Well, and you said a really key point there too, was that in the beginning, you're like, well, the trust needs to be there. How long were you a recruiter to the point where you started doing that consistently and most likely with people that you recruited? I imagine.
I wish I could tell you it was immediate, but it was not. I think they liked me fairly quickly.
Because you're so likable.
I was going to be like, because I think I'm likable, but I think I'm just like a positive, energetic person. So I don't think they were like, oh, this one's the worst. So I think they liked me, but like doesn't equal respect. Respect and trust take time and it takes consistency. And I had to hustle on my own. As Morgan knows, because we worked really closely together, I had to hustle on my own. I had to be coachable. I had to try out new things. I had to go get referrals outside of sort of the district that I was in. And it takes about 12 to 18 months. Because in the reps, in a veteran reps defense, they have seen recruiters sometimes come and go. And so they're like, I'm just not going to take this new recruiter who I don't know and open up my whole book of business and say, you can call them. That would almost be a red flag for me. And so when I had a rep that I had been asking month after month after month, finally say, hey, Cal, I think I got somebody for you. That felt great because you're like, this is going to be a good one. And so it takes time and it has nothing to do with the recruiter. It's not because the recruiter is not a good recruiter or the recruiter is not capable or likable, but trust and respect take time and it takes consistency and hard work. You got to show up every day and sort of earn a seat at the table.
And it's nice because even when you get that referral, it's not about that referral necessarily turning into a hire or a contract. It's the fact that like, listen, I can show you, I'm going to treat this referral with the utmost respect.
Yes.
So that maybe at some point there may be more coming my way, but
Yep.
it's like, I have the chance. I finally have a chance to show you I'm going to do a good job.
Yeah, totally. Exactly.
It's exciting.
How do you think, so part of something that we do here at Recruiters, we also train recruiters, right? And part of that training is referrals. And building that referral culture is so important. So when we think about that, we're always saying you need to build trust, you need to build relationships. And I would say 80% of the people that are in the roles know how to do that, but some of them take that extra 20% and need to really work on that. So building that trust, building those relationships. Do you have any pointers for how to build that trust or relationship that you think that worked for you, and or that you've seen on the recruiting side or the rep side?
Yeah, I would say for a recruiter to build trust, you have to be social, but not a distractor, because reps need to work. And I don't want to say the worst reps, but the reps that really struggle will be the first to talk to you all day long at the coffee pot, because they got nobody to see and nothing to do. And those are not your people, because they're not bringing new blood to your business. And yeah. And so you want to be polite and friendly and chit chat, but you have to be socially aware enough when to shut it down. Or if you're walking down the hallway, we had like our top performing reps, I would always say good morning. If they weren't on the phone, I would make sure I wasn't interrupting them, but it'd be like, hey, good morning, Mark. Good morning, Carm. You'd start to say good morning to all of them. And then you'd get to your desk and you'd go to work. And so I think you first of all just have to give them the space that they need. I also think that reps have to phone. The really good reps phone anywhere from 20 to 40 phone calls a day, 5 days a week. So do recruiters. Our numbers are harder than a rep's numbers. And so I loved phoning at the top of my lungs. Morgan, as you probably remember sitting near me, I was not a quiet phoner, and that I'm a louder person anyway, but that was by design, not by default. I want you to hear that I'm grinding all day too. So if you want to, I'm not going to go book a conference room and hide. Now, if you said, hey, I've got a meeting, can you keep it down? Then I will. But I'm not going to hide. I'm going to show you we're the same, maybe in a little bit of a different capacity. So if a recruiter is trying to build trust and respect, I think they need to show that they're working, be out and about, show up to events, be a good connector. If you interview somebody, let's say it's a career changer that you found on your own that doesn't move through, that for whatever reason, makes significant income, send an introductory email to another rep that you want to get referrals from. Like, hey, I'm trying to, merge that bridge. Don't be transactional again, be relational. Hey, Kim, it was great meeting with you. I know this isn't the right career. I really appreciated our time together. I definitely think you should get connected to Morgan in our office. She's doing some pretty amazing things with her clients. The two of you, if nothing else, will enjoy getting to know each other. I'll let you guys take it from here. And then Morgan, as the rep, is like, she didn't have to do that. I haven't given her anything. Thank you. Now, at some point, I'm not going to keep giving Morgan everything if she's never going to reciprocate. But at some point, I want to extend olive branches. You want to feed your eagles, not your turkeys. But I also think that kind of shows and builds trust within a relationship.
Okay.
So going back into kind of those referrals, Kelly, how do you approach asking for referrals without coming off too salesy?
This might not be the answer you want. I don't care if you think I come across as salesy. I don't think I'm salesy. I think I'm getting an introduction into a career. And so I would schedule a very purposeful meeting that I want to talk about who you know, because we're growing a culture here. If I'm a rep in a meeting, at the end of the meeting, I'm prospecting and I'm going to have the same language as I was a recruiter. The way I ask for the referral is the same every single time. I don't want to operate off of how I think or how I feel. Like, okay, I'm meeting with Kim today and she really likes it. If I really explain things and I go into detail, Morgan wants me to get right after it. So I'm going to change my language every single time. I'm not consistent that way. And I'm also not confident that way. So I'd say, first of all, I want to have my language down pat. For whatever reason in this career, we stopped practicing our language. And when you think about it, it's mind blowing because like elite athletes, the better they get, the more they practice. In our career, we're like, got my language, check, on to the next. It's like, we should never stop sharpening our language or stop practicing. So I would have my language down pat and I would not waste that rep's time. I would do like 30 seconds to a minute and a half of chit chat because I am a person. I want us to like each other, but I also need to respect time. And then I would say, well, obviously, you know why I'm here. As you know, we're growing this office. It's unbelievable. I would speak very positive. The culture here is amazing. You know, I'm so blessed that my career, I get to find talented people and figure out if this is their home in the last line on their resume. And we know that introductions are the best. And I know that you're constantly surrounded with some of the best in the community. And so I want to pick your brain on who you know. I think it's very beneficial to build the feed list ahead of time, go to their social media pages, anywhere that you can find them where they're active to see who they know that might be a good fit. And if the people on your feed list don't work, this is for a recruiter, not a rep. A rep should never feed a category of who do you know. A rep should only use a feed list. But if you're a recruiter, I would first come with the feed list, and then I would go over categories, like who's the most successful person that could not fail if they tried. We've all heard, like, if you're going to go into business, who'd you go into business with and why? And I would come with a couple of questions and I'd be like, tell me about them. And assuming I'd get an introduction, then it's my job to give that rep the email introduction language that it's how I like to be introduced. Like, I want to stay in control. So then I would give that rep the language to, like, this is how I want to be introduced. Same if I'm a rep and I got introduced to somebody, I'm not just going to say, hey, give them a heads up, I'm going to reach out. Cool. Because they're not going to say it well. And it's not because they suck. It's because they don't know how to nominate me. I want to nominate me. And so I'm going to give them the language to nominate me on why I'm an amazing rep or why I'm an amazing recruiter. That's probably how I would do it.
Do you feel when, if a brand new rep, now kind of changing back to the rep side, a brand new rep comes to you, he or she has their language down. So they've got, you know, I know my referral language, I got it, but just the nerves of asking. Is there any advice you give to them while you're kind of doing that one-on-one coaching?
Well, Nike was a genius. I would say just do it. You got to just do it.
Yeah.
And you got to keep in mind, brand in mind. Yeah, like at some point you're going to have to bet on you. It is scary. You know, it's like the first time they took a fact finder and they had asked somebody how much income they made. That's not a normal question that you're used to unless you're in this business. So they're like, how much money do you make? You know, that's like and now reps can do it in their sleep. They don't think about it. Same thing with prospecting. So first you got to practice, you have your language down pat, and then you just got to do it. And you got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. I heard a rep say, and I thought it was brilliant, so I cannot take credit for this quote. He said, you have a choice and the choice is yours. You could either be highly, highly, highly uncomfortable at work. Therefore, you'll be very comfortable at home. Or you can stay comfortable at work and you're going to be super uncomfortable at home. So when you realize as a rep, part of my biggest uncomfortability is prospecting, but I have to lean into that because in order to grow my business, I have to be in front of people. In order to get in front of people, I got to get referrals. Therefore, I have to get good enough at prospecting, and that's uncomfortable. But when I'm uncomfortable, it allows me to have this abundant life at home, whatever that means to somebody. You can stay comfortable at work, but when you walk in those doors at home, that's not going to be very comfortable for you.
Wrote that down.
I really like that.
Yeah.
Pause.
So going back, like the being uncomfortable at work, you'll be comfortable at home. And so just do it, right? You just have to ask. And the same with the recruiter. The hard thing with the recruiter, you almost sometimes need the support of leadership behind you to know that I'm going to go ask. And so when this advisor, this rep says, like, why is this recruiter always asking me? You need that manager, that partner, whoever is in your office to really support the efforts that you're doing as a recruiter. And I think that kind of solidifies. But as a rep, you really you have to believe in yourself. You have to take that risk.
I had a rep, I had an advisor that was a little crusty, that was sick of me asking for referrals and said that to my MD. Why does she keep coming in here and asking for introductions? Now, I was at the point where I'm like, they can come talk to me. They can come ask me why. And my MD was a little like, yeah, you go talk to him. And so I went and talked to him. And I was like, hey, I heard that you spoke with my manager and it was wondering why I was reaching out. I was like, yeah, you constantly keep asking for referrals. I'm like, totally get why you're asking that question. I was like, what do you think my numbers are? Because your numbers are 10 referrals will give you 3 meetings, which will turn into 1 client, the 10-3-1. What do you think mine are? And he was like, I don't know. I'm like, they're 84, 24, 7, and 1. I think were my numbers. I knew we had 24, and I had to get 84 referrals to give me 24 initials, first interview to 7 in-depths, which gave me 1 contract. And I was like, where else should I go then for these 84 introductions if you're me? And he was, he didn't have an answer. And it wasn't trying to belittle him, but it was an awareness piece. Like, I don't think always that people understand that we're in high activity businesses. And again, your response is not my problem. My response is the problem. And so I just think it's a good opportunity sometimes to educate your veteran reps on activity, because they're in a 10-3-1 business. We're in a 84-7-1 business. They're very different.
Kelly, can I tell you something right now that I would, this is very off the cuff, but I would just like to hear what you say when I tell you this.
Yeah.
We work with a lot of companies that have recruiters.
Yep.
Work with mostly financial services companies that have recruiters. And we obviously have a service where we help people find advisors.
Yep.
The problem that we're hearing a lot of times is their recruiters, most of the recruiters out there are no longer asking for referrals. Most of the contracts, I would say 90 to 95% are internet leads. They just don't have referral cultures anymore. The recruiters are somehow not being taught that you need to go ask for referrals. Like, it is amazing to me every time I have a sales call or a brand new client come to us and be like, well, we're doing all the internet. And I'm like, well, who's doing your referrals? Well, nobody. We can't get
I think that's a manager problem. I think that's a lack of behavior. There is no way that we would have remained recruiters had we not prospected, is number one. I also would, you can cut this out if you want, but I would say that, yeah, I think it's a manager problem. I also would argue that maybe you don't have the right person in-house, because if you got a recruiter in-house that is not driven by compensation or sales, you got the wrong person in-house. You got to be money motivated. And if I'm just waiting for the internet to pay me and feed me, then I should just be a professional interviewer. And that's a talent, and good for you. You need to have that attraction power, and no shame to that game, but that's not a recruiter. A recruiter is a hustler and a grinder. And so if there's a recruiter listening to this, that's like, I want to up my game and all I get is internet leads, take those internet leads. Don't not take them, but go be proactive and figure out how you can hustle and grind and build your own referral culture, because that is attractive. That also is attractive to a rep coming in. Like, the reps are asking for referrals. The manager interviewing me is asking for referrals. The recruiter is this is a growing culture, and that's fun to be a part of. So that's a management problem, I think.
Thank you.
One thing that we've also talked about is there really are 2 different profiles to hiring a referral recruiter versus hiring one that is completely okay scouring the internet and doing all that, right? And so both have a place for sure.
Yeah.
But if we are super reliant upon internet, and it truly is 90%, which by no means is that for all offices. So I want to have that claimer on there. Morgan, I know you didn't, I know you weren't saying it's for everybody by any means, but that is absolutely a trend that is getting higher and higher than we've ever seen before. If that continues, I mean, it's a domino effect of production goes down, retention goes down. The average amount that is spent for each person coming in to this new business, I mean, there's numbers all over the place, but let's just say it's an average of this point around like probably 60,000 of the cost of somebody coming into this business being recruited for their first year. Because you have the recruiting, you have the training, you have the development, you have all these things, you have the offices and whatnot. So if you only rely upon internet, just your retention, your production just dramatically decreases. And we have all of those stats from LIMRA. It's so interesting. So if you really want to sit there and say, well, we're recruiting the right people, but our production isn't there, well, you need to take a step back, because it all starts with sourcing.
Yeah.
And if that's where it all starts. And so we always teach that. And, when I hear, oh, we really just don't have a referral culture, like, every culture can be a referral culture. There's
totally
no question, right?
Yeah.
It's the right person sitting
You're
in
like
that.
sitting on a gold mine.
Yeah. There is no magic pill or secret sauce to this.
Oh.
If so, we would have all figured it out, 10, 15 years ago, because we're constantly tweaking, looking, learning. I mean, you guys are like the best of the best at it. You've built a company off of it. If there was an easy way to do it that was turnkey, no part of getting uncomfortable, no part of like, you don't have to grind, they just come to you, you know, you all would have figured it out by now. There's not a shortcut. There's not a secret sauce. It is consistent, systematic, hard work, but it's not hard work. You know, people hear that like 80 hours a week. It's like, no, you can go in a normal career and you just have to make your minutes matter. You don't have to work crazy hours. You don't have to pick up the phone and cold call all day long. It's not that type of hard work. You just have to have a belief that what you're offering is awesome. And you have to talk to people about it. And when they say no, that's okay. You're just closer to your yes. And when you have that, the attitude, your culture will change quickly.
And the only other thing that I would add to that is a referral culture can truly be impacted. We have a whole list that we teach in FFTA. It's like 20 plus items that can impact a referral culture. Not only is it the sourcing and the asking, which is such a huge part, and that's probably your most controllable part. Yeah. But the other part is also the development. And do you have successful new advisors? Are people seeing that? Do they trust in leadership to come in here and teach their best friend, their son, their daughter, their uncle, whoever, right? How to be great in this business. And if you don't have successful reps, then it's going to be really hard to trust at that point, trust in the development side of this career too. So I do want to preface, the recruiting is a big part of this, and the recruiter or the person in charge of recruiting, but it's also the development side and the processes afterwards as well.
Yeah, it's like the first domino in a whole row. So your first stacks can be good, but if you got a couple off either way, like the end's not going to hit. And I mean, a recruiter can affect the attitude of an office, but can't affect the output of a rep's success. That is not their responsibility. Their responsibility is to find talent, walk them through the path, and then hand them off and trust that the person is going to do their very best work. But you need all of it.
Right.
It's crazy how those titles actually mean something. Like, I'm a recruiter. My job is to recruit. I am a director of development. My job is to develop.
Yes. So of all the time and all the experiences you've had with referrals, Kelly, has there ever been any your specific common mistakes that you have seen that people have made when trying to build this book of referrals, whether it be on the recruiting or the rep side?
Yeah. I think first of all is thinking that your family and friends are going to help you the most. People are, again, they think like the ones that are really connected, like, well, I've got a lot of family that is in this, or my friends love me. And it's like, they could be the very best friends in the world and the very best family. I'm not knocking them, but they'll disappoint you every time. They're not in this career, you're in this career. So I think the first mistake is really leaning on your closest circle to get you a big business. You got to fight as fast and as hard to get out of that when it comes to prospecting. In order, you know, like new is glue. You want new blood. You want new introductions. That is the glue to hold everything together. Like old is old. I think that's a really huge mistake. I also think not systematizing. I know I've said it before, but like winging it and trying today, you know, reps are like, okay, I got to get some referrals today because I told my client builder in my group I get 15 referrals in the next X amount of days and I'm behind. And so I'm going to blitz, and blitzing isn't sustainable. And so I think really coming in and figuring out, do I have my language? Do I know how many referrals I need? It's amazing in recruiting and as a rep, if you know your numbers and you do the activity to get your numbers, 100% of the time you end exactly where you're supposed to. And it blows your mind because you're like, this one's definitely going to become a client, or this one's definitely going to become a rep, and you're never right. It jacks with you every time. And then all of a sudden out of the woodwork comes this like stud or like great client that you did not anticipate. And so I think if a rep or a recruiter can just say, I got to be obsessed with my numbers and just control them daily. So I know that I need to prospect this many times because that generates this many referrals, and I'm fine. It's really when you get the number part of this business, it's the easiest. We complicate it too much because we're thinking and feeling and we're being emotionally responsive. And it's like, how many times you got to ask for referrals today? If you just figure out what your ratios are and just control that, you'll be far more successful. I mean, you show me any rep or recruiter that has a problem in their business, and I'll show you somebody that's got a prospecting issue. You want your problems to go away, consistently prospect.
No question about that one. No argument. Yeah. Morgan always says, do you know your numbers? Always.
I learned it from Morgan.
Mm-hmm.
We had an Excel sheet. We had anytime we'd be like, Morgan, I'm behind on my contract, right? It's like, well, where are your numbers? And you'd be like, okay, I'll talk to you later. Like, I gotta get my numbers right. It was what Morgan was saying is you're coming to me with the problem, but you haven't figured out the solution and you know the answer to the solution. Because again, there's not a shortcut. So go hit your numbers. And if something's not hitting right, then we can talk and figure it out. But never did that occur. Never was I like, I've hit all of my numbers perfectly and my commitments didn't fall exactly where they're supposed to. It just didn't work out that way.
You do. And it takes the emotion out of it. So you're just like,
Yeah.
all right, let's go.
Yeah.
Kelly, thank you so much. Your valuable insights. We appreciate you coming on our little show here.
Oh, thank you for asking.
Right?
Yeah, gonna change the world.
Yes, we're excited. So thanks to all the new listeners for coming to check it out today. If you liked what we discussed today, please share with anyone else who might like this kind of content. Referrals do make the world go around, correct?
Mm-hmm. Subscribe. I've heard that all the fun time, right? And until next time, thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Okay.
Done. Crushed it.